Good morning, hope you're good. Welcome to the YouTube channel. If you are watching us on YouTube, this is a video that we do every single day as analysis on learning crypto. Link below, 7-day free trial. So what we need to start off with is obviously the stock market this morning, because today is the anniversary of Black Monday. Black Monday was an event that happened, big massive plunge back in the day, 1987 I believe, and obviously a lot of this panic is starting to happen now in terms of can Wall Street, can the S&P, all kinds of stuff like that, can it rally with stimulus or without it? That's the most important thing, without. And there's all kinds of here, obviously, can it rally without the deal? But we've also got a lot of consumer data coming out. The reason why I'm saying that is because it is earnings week, month, whatever you want to call it as. The data always will look good when you look at March. When you look at March, April, May, June, whatever, in certain stocks. But you've got technology stocks as well that did incredibly well due to the lockdowns because they got a lot of usage. So what I'm trying to say is here, we could have a pivotal kind of period now in this quarter where we've got elections, where we've got a lot of, obviously, earnings, and do we or do we not have stimulus? So it's going to have an effect overall. This morning though, Asian market, majority pretty bullish, pretty damn good. Waking up this morning in terms of futures, it's looking pretty much full of hopium. So today, most likely be a good day, which is what we usually go for. In terms of that is obviously very good for the cryptocurrency market. We know overall that this follows this as it stands right now. So whatever the stock market does, we need to kind of keep looking at and keep an eye on overall, especially with the dollar, especially with what gold is doing as well. It's obviously the most important thing is knowing where the wealth is going. You know, ideally we want it to decouple, we want it to be its own entity, but as it stands, we don't have that. Moving on though, a lot of people have been asking me about Zilliqa. I want to just kind of explain this little part of it. In terms of this, because I get a lot of questions on this, certainly in the premium group and also on YouTube from a previous video, staking Zilliqa is really easy. Just go on stake.zilliqa.com. It's very, very simple. This is the ZIL swap platform. I'm just showing you the gZil token. You get gZil for every time you stake. So if you are staking, say, for example, with me, I'm staking over 500,000. I'm getting, as it stands, approximately at the percentage APR, roughly about 680 ZIL per day. With that, I'm getting 0.68 gZil, which is equivalent to basically 1 gZil is worth, 3,000 Zilliqa basically. So every 100 days, I worked out yesterday, if it is the same APR and whatnot, it works out I will get a decent chunk, basically about 60 gZil like that, if that is the case. So you got to think here long term. If you are going to keep your gZil, they might be worth a lot more in the future because there's only going to be about 700,000 of them. They're only going to be released and minted over 2 years. So use your noggin. I'm going to hold mine because I think they'll be worth a lot more. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest to see this worth, these worth a lot more in terms of maybe 10,000 plus ZIL, in my opinion. But that, we'll see. Anyways, moving on into the chart, because there's a lot to talk about today in terms of overall weekly analysis, but we've also got some fundamentals to go through as well. So in terms of Bitcoin, a quick look on the weekly before we go anywhere. This is kind of what we've got in terms of the weekly time frame. Neutral candle, not the greatest candle in the world for last week. Moving on into the daily though, we are looking pretty damn bullish still, in my opinion. Still had a nice impulse, retracement. We're still forming a trend. We have retraced into a level. This is a 0382 on the fib from this swing down, and this is also daily levels and where the EMAs are. We've found some demand here at 11,200 say, and we've propped back up over the weekend, which is kind of interesting to see. It still looks okay overall, and it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if we get a parabolic move very soon. And I think to the upside, I think we're going to test at 12k at least, maybe even go for a bit higher. But that could be the final hurrah, in my opinion, could be for the year. I've already said, part of this year I've already said, Depending on the situation with the stock market and stimulus, we may get a final hurrah, but I do feel that there's more chance that we're going to go and retest that 12k than, you know, any period now than we would have a couple of weeks ago. But I've always maintained, and I feel that a break of that 12,500 is pretty unlikely. However, that being said, what would happen if a bit of that wealth goes over from that stock market into crypto? It will blast through it. What you got to remember as well is anything above that level, there's not much. Okay, it's a bit fluffy, and that pink and fluffy stuff can be broken through very, very quickly. That would mean moon. That would mean we could go up to 14k pretty easily, maybe even higher. So we've got to be mindful of that. So overall, Bitcoin does look bullish. It looks good. It looks all right, but this area is key. This area is key. If we don't break those, it's going to be a long run down, probably down to this CME gap down here, in my opinion. But it's all what ifs. We know that. Moving on to Ethereum. As I mentioned with my technical analysis the other day, I put this on Twitter as well. Demand zone right there. What do you know? We've bounced off it. We've sprung off it pretty much from that. I think it was like 350 or 360 levels. Yeah, 361 level, which was nicely in where this period of like support level was, and a very, very key fib level from the swing. Now, with that being said, it still looks pretty bullish. If you're looking at the overall chart, you can kind of see the trend is, you know, series of higher highs, higher lows. It's kind of obvious, really. So again, wouldn't shock me in the slightest, but there's a lot of hype about Ethereum 2.0, and I mentioned this as well on Twitter, on Telegram as well. Alt season will commence properly when this goes to the moon. Ethereum is the altcoin setter. It doesn't matter what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin goes to 14, 15k and Ethereum does not follow it at all, altcoins will bleed, deadly bleed. Your Satoshis will get smashed. But if Ethereum decides to go for a little jog up to 500 and up to $600, $700, $800 again, well, guess what? Your Ethereums, your ERC20s, your chain links, everything will go to the moon. Like, it will just follow it. That'd be pretty exciting. And that will also bring down dominance. So overall, we've got to be very, very careful with what we're doing. I would not recommend shorting the market right now. I would not recommend taking profit just yet. I'd just wait and see what happens. There's a lot of things happening over the next coming weeks. That could be a catalyst for some big moves, up and down. But I feel that the way the momentum's going, the way it looks in terms of the chart and in terms of the analysis overall from this trend, it's bullish. There's no way to tell you that you should be still in this market. You shouldn't be out of it. You should be still in it. Obviously, you know, when you look at different situations and different periods, there's periods where you should be looking, well, actually, I should be out of this market, but you should already be in it overall, especially if you've been sitting in it for a few months. Moving on to the likes of Chainlink, again, I want to talk about this because this is kind of important. Again, it's still showing a bit of a bull trend. It's been showing as nice little support levels overall as the EMAs. For me personally, I think we're going to go back to $13 at least, maybe even $12. We'll see what happens in the daily. But for me, overall, it's still looking pretty good. But I don't want to talk too much about, obviously, altcoins at the minute, but you're looking at the overall trend. It's had a nice little retracement, but it's actually popped back up, and it's still looking quite strong overall. And as I say, if Ethereum is strong, this will be strong. Like everything else, it's going to be pretty damn savage. With that in mind, though, as I say, we look at the dominance and you look at this and you kind of zoom in on it. Let's just look at the 4 hour. It's very, very indecisive in terms of what direction it wants to go. Either wants to go up or pretty much down. Pretty savage, it really is when you look at the last month. When you look at this overall and you zoom in on it, it's not ideal, is it? Like, it's literally does look like a lot of indecision in terms of what way it's going to go. Some days it's up, some days it's down. It's like, whoa, you know, it's like it's majorly random. What we need is clear direction. What we need to see is, do we go up? If that is the case, alt season is over. If we go down from this point, alt season commences, and that would indicate that Ethereum's got a grip of the market, it's going to go for it, and it's beating Bitcoin essentially, and that'd be pretty good. In terms of overall, with that in mind, the total 2 is exactly the same. It's very much indecision. We know that this is a top. We've popped back down. It's still actually in an uptrend technically, if you kind of count the lows. It's kind of wobbling upwards. It's not the greatest trend in the world, but it still looks all right. So what would happen here is this would obviously increase because money's going into it, the money flow, and the dominance will go down. That would indicate alt season, and then people will start getting very, very excited. So overall, the market's okay. It's absolutely fine. A lot of people do ask, what's the market like? People are like, oh my God, it's going to crash and crumble because I've been listening to certain people. Well, no. As it stands, it looks like they're waiting for it's like there's waiting for a catalyst to happen. Something, whether it's between stimulus, whether it's between the election. We'll see what happens, but I think whoever blinks first in terms of the stock market will have an idea. There is always an opportunity and a chance that wealth will go into the market from that, from any sort of stock market, but there's also a big chance that the funds and the fund managers that are in the stock market will probably withdraw crypto as well at the same time in fear. So, interesting. In terms of going into fundamentals, ignore the date, can't get the stuff these days. Market sentiment, as I mentioned, is still quite good. The greed factor isn't too high to be too worried about it, so it's not too bad. But when you look at overall in terms of market, let's have a look at some news. Ethereum, okay, this is massively important. HODL, you know that word? HODL waves and stuff like that. According to Glassnode, there's a huge chunk of Ethereum that has only changed hands. It's only 39%, which in my opinion is a huge chunk, but where's the rest of it? That is vitally important we understand that. So roughly 28% of Ether last moved between the last 12 and 24 months. So that is basically a large segment of the chain, but that would indicate the likes of Uniswap, people getting an opportunity, moving it around, getting used to using it. It's kind of interesting, but there's only, I say only, around 20% of tokens have not moved since October 2017. That would indicate that there's a huge HODL at the minute of Ethereum. You got to think as well how much liquidity is locked in DeFi as well, which has been moved most likely from that 28% roughly, give or take. So with that in mind, interesting. When you look at the second part of this as well, China, central banks digital currency, you're going to hear that phrase an awful lot in the next few years, I feel. China's central bank has issued 10 million yuan, $1.5 million worth of digital currency to 50,000 people in the Shenzhen area. So that's pretty interesting. Obviously, the digital currency is starting to pick up a little bit. There's all kinds of stuff about digital currencies coming out. There's all kinds of projects coming out, and they're getting reborn pretty much from a while ago. They've kind of came relevant all of a sudden. You're going to start seeing a few IEOs with them. So just be careful with what you see and what you kind of look at. But is it bullish for the future of cryptocurrency? Kind of. Is it going to take away some of the share of some of the big cryptocurrencies? Most likely. So just keep an eye on that. It's very, very important. Moving on into the world of Polkadot. As you probably know me, obviously learning crypto as well. Quite bullish on Polkadot in terms of an infrastructure, in terms of an ecosystem. And they are bringing out wrapped Bitcoin on their blockchain, similar to the one on Ethereum. But as we know, Ethereum is quite slow and sluggish. It's not much of an upgrade realistically on the blockchain of Bitcoin, but Polkadot is. So it's kind of exciting. So in terms of this, it'll be in a parachain on Q1 2021. Obviously, most important thing to remember, it will be funded and followed up by the Web3 Foundation grant. So the first testnet alpha is scheduled in November. And yeah, that'd be pretty interesting to see how it works. Once deployed, users will be able to mint one-to-one Bitcoin-backed assets, Polkadot on as Polka BTC. So yeah, that'd be pretty cool. As we know, Polkadot, in my opinion, will be pretty big. I think it'll get a massive share out of Ethereum over time. So yeah, it's definitely one to keep an absolute eye on. Moving into other bits of information that you need to know. Centivate is a coin that Andy likes quite a lot of. It's got a lot of a lot of confluence between what real world data is required and the internet in terms of obviously decentralized internet, which is kind of important. Stuff is happening. So pretty much tomorrow there's an AMA, and then they've got an exchange listing this month as well. Plus the 30th of November there's a huge beta happening for the community and leading partners. So yeah, a lot happening in the run up to mainnet on the 31st of December. So yeah, most likely expect that to have a bit of a pump. This isn't on Binance, I don't believe. I think it's on like Qcoin and stuff like that. So yeah, if you want to grab some, feel free to go for it. So overall, that is the video done today. Obviously, if you haven't joined us on YouTube, please do drop us a like, leave us a comment, and give us a subscribe as well. It helps.